This week on the Manufacturing Culture Podcast, we get into it with Renan Devilliers, founder of OSS Ventures and the rare kind of tech leader who still spends time on factory floors. We talked about why he believes manufacturing workers should be paid like tech workers, what happens when AI is built for the people who actually run the machines, and why he's betting everything on a future that's not fables. Welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. Renan, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Renan. Renan, my icebreaker, just to kind of set the tone, let the audience get to know who you are. If your life were a movie, what genre would that movie be? What would the opening scene be of the movie? And who would play you?
So it would be comedy.
Okay.
It would be Adam Sandler's. And it would be the weirdest thing you can think of. And the opening movie would probably be something like where you scratch your head about, because I'm both an incredibly lucky guy, like consistently all over my life, and the weirdest things keep happening to me, and that's kind of awesome. Now I'm good with that.
All right. I like that. I like that a lot. And I think that gives us a very good snapshot into who Renan is. So this will be a lot of fun. Understanding the luck, but also having odd things happen. I'm excited for your stories. Renan, this is a Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I do have to ask about culture in an organization. What is your view? What is your definition of culture?
So my definition of culture is what gets people to enter an organization, to thrive or to leave the organization, and how they actually behave. And that is for sure not the weird words that are written on the wall by some HR guys. Like
Right.
it's no, it's actually what gets you in or out of the door or up the org chart.
Yeah. Wonderful. I love it. So Renan, where did you grow up? Tell us about your kind of origin story, where you are from, where you grew up, what life was like for you.
So I grew up in a military family. My dad was in the army. And so by the time I was 18, I think we moved like 13 times in 7 different countries. One of the very weird thing about the French army, they stopped doing that. But you basically go with your father, like in another country, in a military base. You get,
Yeah.
you grow up, yeah. So I basically was moving every year or so, sometimes less.
Okay.
I've lived in Africa, Japan, later in Germany, France, Switzerland, like all over the place. And so, yeah. And so growing up, I was way better with systems and books and computing than with people.
Okay.
And so I was a quiet kid. I was a quiet and weird kid.
I love it. All right. Quiet and weird kid. That moved quite a bit. And going into the schools that you studied, you studied at, if I remember correctly from your bio, some of the top schools in Europe. Um, what what led you to those programs, to those schools?
So I was like, I briefly considered becoming a professional violinist, and I got number 2 at like the biggest exam in violin in France. And I said, okay, I stopped violin and now I want to do math. So I went all in on math, and I think I was pretty good at math. And so I literally put on Google, what are the top schools in math in Europe? And I want to not do physics, because that was very important for me. And so, and so it gave me like some school, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to that school. And so after some trial and error, I got into the school. Yeah. It's
Wonderful.
it's a really good school, and also it has an advantage, which is you get paid because, like from an army family, we didn't have that much money, and
Right.
so getting paid while you're doing your studies is just awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a dream come true for a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of people. Um, so after you studied math, you went violin to math. Ultimately, you landed at McKinsey. What drew you to McKinsey to start with? But more importantly, what drew you out of McKinsey? Why did you leave?
So actually, the fun part is that 1 month before finishing my studies, I learned that I either had to become a public servant or pay back everything that I had been given in the last 3 years. So a brief look at my bank account showed that it was not a possibility. So I literally went to Google again and I put highest paid public servant France. And, and it was economist at the OECD because it's an international institution, so you don't pay taxes.
Right.
So And so I became in love with OECD, and I did 2 years and 1 day at OECD because you had to pay for 2 years. And
Got it.
I loved OECD. Like, it's those kind of big paritatic things. You work on a lot of important stuff, interesting stuff. You get to meet with head of states and everything. But there's one thing that I hated, which was public affairs and things like that.
Okay.
And so I said, okay, so public is out of question. So it needs to be private. So if you go private, you have to be a CEO, right? Because yeah, I mean, and so I literally put on Google once again, company that created the most CEO S&P 500s last 10
Okay.
years. And it told McKinsey. I didn't know what consulting was. I could not read like a P&L. I had zero business experience. And I applied. And on the first, and I applied, and I think I got in because I was good at like thinking,
Yeah.
but definitely not because of the business case. And also they were opening like a Lyon bureau called Orphos, like a part of McKinsey. So it was kind of more startup-y. So I think that's why
Yeah.
they chose me.
Okay.
And on the first day at McKinsey, they hired like ten people, and you had like 9 people wearing suits coming from business school, and one guy wearing a sweater who clearly did not get the memo.
Awesome.
That was me.
Awesome. I love that.
So yeah, that was weird. But I'm actually immensely grateful to them because my school was math only, and I
Yeah.
didn't know nothing about business. Like my dad was in the army, we knew nothing about business. I had zero
Right.
entrepreneur in my family, and so in a very brief time, they taught me first you have to wear a suit, but they also taught me so much about like reading a P&L, understanding business, how to interact with C-levels and everything. And so for like 4 years, I got promoted consistently every 6 months, which is like very fast. And
Yeah.
at some point, I said to myself, okay, I discovered manufacturing and operations. I discovered the world of business. I discovered that I love it.
Yeah.
And I also discovered that doing slides and giving advice is cool, but like owning the result of what you're doing, it made me feel like less of a fraud. And so I wanted to become operational. And so I got out because I wanted to be operational, and also because I had a private life event with my dad passing away, and so I had kind of take care of the family.
Yep.
And you cannot really take care of the family when you're working 6 days out of the week and you're
Yeah.
like in Dubai and then in South Africa in the same week. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, so you stepped away from McKinsey, um, took care of your family. When did you get the itch to build and start something of your own?
that's actually funny because so I became like I was working in a factory, then I briefly became factory director, supply chain director. So I was like doing the work. And the cycle was always as follows. And the cycle began at McKinsey also. The cycle was I get a new position that is very high for my age. And then 6 months in, I get threatened with getting fired because I pissed a lot of people. And 6 months after, people say, hey, this is amazing. We never achieved what we achieved with you. And so you get promoted. And so the cycle begins again.
Yep.
And I had all those weird interactions. Like someone told me, can you please stop caring so much in a professional setting? And so it took me almost 10 years, but I realized I was an entrepreneur.
Got it.
And was acting as an entrepreneur inside big companies, and they hate it mostly.
Yes, they do. Yes.
But I did not know that. Like I did not know that about myself. I did not know that about the companies I was working in. And so I realized that after 10 years.
Wow. So you said something in your previous answer that you were introduced to manufacturing. What about manufacturing specifically as an industry made you focus your company on that sector? Why not fintech or software or other sorts of technology? Why manufacturing?
Yeah. So um, first, I worked in manufacturing for 10 years. At start, it was just because some McKinsey partner had a very complex supply chain issue. And he was like, is there some nerd who can help me on that? And I was like,
I'm that nerd.
yeah, cannot read a P&L, but I'm there for the Excel file. So, so that's how I got introduced to manufacturing. But
Got
then
it.
I just loved manufacturing, and I love it. And like there are two big answers. The first big answer is it's a fourth of the global GDP. Like it's massive. Like everything around you, everything that you wear, everything that you eat has been made in a factory. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's massive, and it's very interesting for a nerd like me because a supply chain, a factory, those are very big systems that cannot really afford mistakes, and like that is just fascinating, and there's so much things to do.
Yeah.
So that's one answer, and the other answer is also like, after creating my company, I was lucky enough to make some money, and so my focus was on okay, is there something that can work basically the next 15 years about on, and I won't get bored because it's more than just money. And the answer was, of course, manufacturing.
Yeah. I get that. I feel that response in my soul. So you started OSS Ventures. What what problem do you solve for manufacturing? What does OSS do?
Yeah. So we are a venture builder. So venture builder is a kind of new organization. There are about 2,000 of us in the world, venture builders. And so what we do is we create software solutions for factories and for the world of operations. And the pain point that we solve specifically is that factories have been under invested by technology for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And so if you are an operator in a factory in Tennessee, the average age of the line of code you interact with is 30 years old. So they can drive and they probably have a mortgage. And so, I mean, that's just bonkers when you think about
Yeah.
it. And it has been underinvested because while we are doing that in China, BYD and the likes, they have been innovating. But here, nobody gave them. And so
Yeah.
nobody innovated. And so now that there is all this talk about reshoring and everything, one thing that I really dislike about reshoring is that it implies some kind of doing the same thing, but at home. This is false. Like the factories that we are going to put in America and in Europe are not going to be the same as the ones that are in Thailand and everything, because the cost of labor is different, because the products are different, because the set of constraints is different. And so the factories are going to be vastly different.
Yeah.
And what we think is there's going to be less people in the factories, but the people who will be in the factories will be paid like tech workers, because they're going to interact with cool machine, cool tech and everything. And you're
Yeah.
not going to get paid to like hammer a nail with a hammer. You are going to get paid to be in control of like 4 or 5 different systems with AI and interacting with machines, and like having a span of control that is so large that you create so much value that you have well paid jobs.
Yeah.
And so that's the vision that we have. And so we're solving for that. Like, I'm
Got
not
it.
done until every single factory in Europe and in the US is like that. And I want to be able to tell my daughter, she's 3.5, so I have a little time. I want to be able to tell my daughter, hey, you should go work in manufacturing because that's your best career opportunity. And today I cannot say that with a straight face,
Yeah.
but in 10 years I should be.
I agree. I mean, at least in the US, and on the reshoring front, um, these the fact that we need to reshore is a self-imposed issue. This is because of policy decisions and corporate greed that existed 40 years ago. And so now we have we've lost the capacity, right? We've lost really three things in the US, at least, when it comes to when we offshored. We lost capacity. We closed all of our trade schools and shrunk our workforce. And then we let our infrastructure crumble to a point that we can't reliably get products from A to B in the US. Is there a similar root cause, I guess, in Europe and in France,
Oh yeah,
with
it's the same and it's worse.
okay,
Because you add on top of that a very inefficient energy market.
got it.
So some industries are just almost not doable anymore in Europe, and you add a layer of bureaucratic complexity, which is like absurd. And so most of our big companies are putting sites in the US, and there is a flight to
Yeah,
US in terms of manufacturing.
cool.
So for information, so big announcement, we are opening the Boston bureau at OSS Ventures. So now we are in France and in the US. And
Good for
so
you.
yeah,
Congrats.
thank you. And I've been spending like half of my time in Boston those last 6 months. And we can really see that there are the same, like a subset of causes that are the same, but the reaction in the US is way better. Like if you go to Texas and you set up a factory right now, basically
Hmm.
get 1 year of power for free, and you can set up your manufacturing site in like 4 months. Like that's not happening in Europe.
No,
No.
nothing moves that fast. Wow. Um, all right, so let's talk a little bit more. We'll dive into some more of those kinds of questions in a minute. But um, what have you learned about yourself starting OSS? Because you're a co-founder, you have partners there, and there's a quite a big team of individuals who work there. Um, what have you learned about yourself in creating this startup or co-founding this startup?
um, so I think the main learning is that I was able to focus on my zone of genius way more than in my previous experiences. And
Okay.
then I now have access to capital and talent that makes it incredibly scalable. So just some numbers for you. We started 4.5 years ago.
Mhm.
We created 22 companies, and we are live in 2,200 factories. There are 600 people working in all the companies, and it's due to grow 100% this year. And like I now focus on early stage building relationship with manufacturers, and everything else is someone else.
That's phenomenal.
And that's just the best life I ever had.
That's fantastic. I love that. Um, when when did OSS Ventures stop feeling like a startup and really start feeling like it was a mission that you were on?
Honestly, day one.
Really?
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
like we like so we have the company Notion page and everything.
Mhm.
And the very first page that I created was mission, values, strategy.
Okay.
And mission has never changed.
Okay.
Values has changed.
Sure.
And strategy is V7, I think. Something like that. So, but the vision has always been the same. And so
Okay.
it's also, I think it goes with being a second time founder because
Mhm.
I was lucky enough to, after my operational days, create a startup and sell back my shares. The first time you're trying to do everything at once. The second time I was way more focused and like intentional in being crystal clear about the mission and the vision.
Okay. I love that. And so you do have some very powerful values and beliefs of the organization. Um, Talk to us about those and how you developed those for this mission that you're on.
So, um, for example, we have one part of the vision that we have is that people on the shop floor should be paid as good as tech people. Like those asshole tech bros. Like we should get less of them and have more handsomely paid people on the shop floor. And so, for
Yeah.
example, that materialized with us going to factories and we actually spend an absurd amount of time talking with those people. Because when you really get to deep conversations with those people and you say, hey, if there was to be two of you operating 5 lines, like how would you go about it?
Mm.
And they know.
Exactly.
They do
Yes.
know. And we just have to build the damn things, which
Yes.
is not the hard part, by the way. And so we are just technologists and we build the right thing for them to be able to operate. Like 2 weeks ago, I was in a plastic factory, plastic compounding. And the guy in charge of supply chain, like not high level supply chain in the SNOP, like low level supply chain, he says, hey, here is my vision. And I know you have that piece of software, but here is my vision and I want to work like that. And his vision is absolutely disruptive to the thing. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what we are going to do. And so I flew like a team of data scientists. And in 1 week, they have the thing. And in 3 months, it basically works. And I think a lot of like, I've lived in San Francisco.
Mm.
There is a good side, which is those people are nuts and they are not afraid to reinvent everything.
Yes.
But sometimes they are pricks in thinking that they know better than everyone
Mm.
else.
Yeah.
If you are humble enough to go on the shop floor and listen to the people, but then you are good enough of a tech builder to actually build the right thing,
Yeah.
then incredible things happen. But if you're just the asshole part thinking you reinvent everything from Palo Alto, ah,
Yeah. I Renan, I talk with shops all the time about how they can go on digital transformation journeys, how they can change internally, right? And it sounds like you are going directly to the source to allow people to author the change that they need to see on the floor when it comes to the software and the technology that they need to operate. Am I capturing that well?
that is so true. And thank you for putting it elegantly like that. Because, so for example, one of the building principles that we have in the products that we ship is that there is someone smart in the factory who is in control. You're just building the platform that lets them be in control. Let me take an example. One of our companies called Juno is doing AI for process engineering. So
Okay.
leveraging AI, you can have basically optimal settings for complex machines. And for one client, we augmented throughput by like 30% and energy consumption went down by 17%. And so for your listener, 30% throughput in that kind of industry that is capex heavy is like tens of millions of gains per year.
Yeah.
And they did that thing that is awesome, which is that they don't do an AI black box. They do an AI that creates what we call the graph of process engineering. And the graph of process engineering is saying, hey, you have like 45 parameters. And if temperature goes up, then very likely miscibility goes down. And so quality goes up. And so a process engineer can look at the map and say, this is true, I don't buy that, blah, blah, blah. And by having someone be in control, that is when you get the gains. And so the feedback of the shop floor was like, 10 guys said to us, I'm going to put AI in your machines, you're dumb, and I'm better than you. You're the only guys who said, I'm going to get AI to create a map of what we think is the working of the machine, but you'll be in control. And so tailor the thing because that's your tool. And so I
Yes.
really think that putting those people in control is the new thing. And there's that 30 years ago, people were saying, hey, a factory is going to be machines and a guy and a dog, and the dog needs to bite the guy if he touches one machine. And it never happened. You have people in control of the machines. And so technology and AI is just the new layer. There will be people in charge of the AI and the technology, not zero.
Hmm. I love it. I love that. I love the whole thing. So how do you stay focused as an organization on these values that you guys hold so dear?
So one thing that we do is every Monday at the same hour, we have a review of the projects of the company. And the end of that meeting is every single employee needs to say the value that was good during this week and how they embodied the value, and the value that was bad during this week and how they can do better. We have actually fired people over how they were behaving
Wow.
regarding the values.
I love
And
it.
yeah, because that's the only way. And it was hard because you know when people are just bad and not aligned with the values, it's easy. But when people are rock stars but divas and
Yes.
not aligned with the values, that's when it gets hard. But you have to
Yes.
fire the people anyways.
Yeah. You have to be consistent. You have to use those values as that North Star. And if they're just empty words on a wall, then they mean nothing. And people know that. And that's when people look at their role there as just a job and not a career, not something that they actually can believe in. And so I love that you take action around those values.
That's very important.
We see this in the US and in Europe, where these companies have these words thrown up on a wall, and they really don't mean anything because nobody acts the way that the values are stated, right? They act completely different, especially in that leadership team. Maybe the people on the floor act the same way as or act in line with the values, but the leadership teams don't. So we see it all the time, and I struggle with that with companies that I've worked with, that have brought me in to help them change the culture, but they're not living the values, the words that they have up on the wall. And so that's a really hard thing for me to reconcile. And
I also
yeah.
think something which is so the set of values that we have at OSS. Um, there are 6 values, and we are acutely aware of the downsides of the values that we have. Like, if your values are all positive and there's no downside, it's probably not values. It's just like aspirational leadership, commitment. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, why not?
Sure.
Get me three more, Jim. So, I mean,
Yes.
so for example, let me take a concrete example. Um, we have one value, which is fail, learn, succeed.
Okay.
And so we go into great length explaining to people that we expect them to take risks. We expect them to fail at some things, but we expect them to learn about it, but we expect also them to succeed.
Mm.
So it means that as an employee, if you are having zero failures, probably you're not pushing yourself hard enough. But if you're having only failures, you probably didn't learn, you're not succeeding, you're probably out.
Yeah.
And as a company, we go and tell the people we work with, the industrials, hey, here is how we are going to do the beginning of that project because our failure rate is 30%. So there's 30% chance of us
Wow.
starting that. And at the end, it won't work. And that's okay. Just account for it. And so as a business, we are very upfront in doing that. And sometimes some people, some factories say to us, what? There's a 30% failure rate. No. And we're like, all right. And I always tell them the same, which is, I think you have a 30% failure rate. They are just a bunch of people doing slides to pretend that it's not failure. But if that's the way you roll, we don't roll like that. And it's okay. Like it's a big world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what we have consistently learned is that to really live those values, you have to be aware of the downside and you need to live through it. And it's hard. Like it's that.
Um, one thing that jumped out at me on your website, Renan, is under your approach, right? It's not typical that you go to your kind of company's website and you click on the approach button and up pops core beliefs, not necessarily like, hey, here's our framework of how we operate. You have your beliefs there, and that guides, I assume, the way you approach the projects you work on. Is that correct?
Yes. So when we decide to work on something, because as venture builders, we're not taking client requests. We decide to solve some issues. And then we propose to potential clients, hey, if you want, we will work on that with you and you don't pay until it works. So it's very
Wow.
entrepreneurial. It's very risk-taking. And so we have that way of deciding which projects we choose. And if it's not aligned with our values and our belief system, then we just don't do it.
I love that. I love that. I wish more companies, and now you're going to force me to look at this as well. I mean, because I was just talking with a company yesterday, um, about exactly this issue and how I constantly feel like I'm chasing that next client, instead of putting what I believe in out there and letting the clients naturally materialize, right? And so just your website alone is going to push me into this like mindset change, so thank you. um Talk to us about those beliefs. I mean, you've got some pretty powerful beliefs on there: sustainability, social change, what was the third,
Sovereignty.
climate change, workers' rights, and sovereignty. Talk to us about how that guides that decision making process.
So um, we think climate change is real, but we don't believe in like bureaucrats counting CO2. So that makes us very non-European. But what we see, we just see it, is that it's harder to operate. It's more volatile to operate. Raw material is going nuts. Access to energy is not that much of a given. And you basically cannot afford to be wasteful.
Yeah.
And so anything that we do must address some part of that. And so, for example, um, the process engineering thing that we did with AI, it maximizes output and gets less energy consumption. at the same time.
Wow.
Because just maximizing output, increasing the energy efficiency, we think that is going to kill our client.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
one.
I love
Then
it.
there is a civilian worker right. Every single solution we do elevates the status of the shop floor workers. No exception. So
Wonderful.
you have a new skill, you have a new thing. We design like some of our shop floor facing products are like beautifully designed. We take care and pride in that. Like we want, like I want to be able to say to my daughter, go work in manufacturing. It's a sound career choice, which
Yeah.
today it is not. Like she
Right.
should go in banking or tech. And
Yeah.
so it must elevate shop floor status. And so every single thing that we do does that. So for example, like the AI for process engineering, the process engineer, they don't know how to do AI, but we
Yeah.
give them the tools, enough tools to be able to do AI without having the math part figured out.
Got it.
And so it elevates their jobs. So that's second. And then there's sovereignty. So if you really want to make a quick buck in manufacturing, it's pretty simple. You repackage Chinese robots or Chinese tech and you put that with a premium. And we're just not doing that. Like
Got it.
we think that sovereignty is a big issue. We work with defense companies and we have been working with different companies since the beginning of OSS. At the time, some investors said to us, hey, you're working with defense. We don't want to invest in a company. And like, hey, it's people out there. You do you, I do me, okay? And so it's just, let's face it, there are very, very different models in the world. And do I want my daughter to live under the CCP? Answer, no. So I don't work with that. That's it.
Got it. I love it. I love how that does guide the decision-making process for you on what projects you work on. I
And,
think it's amazing.
and maybe a word about that, because that is a very clear choice by us. But it's a choice that is a result of a conversation with one of my mentor. He sadly passed away. Um, his name was Jean-Philippe, and he was like one of the top executives at one of the biggest manufacturing company in the world.
Wow.
And he was French, and he was kind enough to mentor me in like the first 2 years of OSS. And one thing that I was saying to him is, look, I'm chasing everyone. I know I have the right vision, or at least I'm convinced. And I spend so much time talking to people and trying to get them to come where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, I think you should do the exact opposite. You should be extremely upfront and then create so much noise that only the people who are your future best customers come your door and you work with them and you waste no time. And then it will grow. And we literally cannot keep up with the demand right now.
That's amazing.
But
Congratulations.
there are like 60% of factory owners. Like some guy said to me, yeah, I don't buy tech. And I was like, for you, you do you, I do me.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it was so important in the history of OSS. And I'm really thankful to Jean-Philippe for having taught me that.
That's wonderful. What does the future of the industry look like to you?
So in let's try three adjectives. The first is polarized, meaning I think there will be gigafactories and small factories and nothing in between.
Got it. Just two complete opposite ends of the spectrum, but nothing, no gray area.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's already happening. If you look at automotive in China, you have
Mm-hmm.
basically gigafactories outputting the battery and the hull. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have a lot of very small factories doing just like customization of like the hull, the color and everything. And so
Got it.
gigafactory, very little, nothing in between. So that's one. Um, the second is disconnected. Like the supply chains are going to be shorter.
Okay.
Everything is getting verticalized. If you look at Tesla, is the most verticalized car maker in the world. And
Yeah.
it's also one of the most profitable. And so, and the third is, I wouldn't say automated, but the leverage of the humans in manufacturing companies is going to be 10x, 100x what it is today. Like just one thing that blows my mind. And when I say that to factory directors, like 20% of them say, "Oh shit, I need to do that today," and the other 80% are like, "There's no way this is happening." So that's a good filter to know if I
Yeah.
will work with them. So at Tesla and BYD, when someone does the industrialization of a piece on a machine, they create the code and then they press enter, and then the code gets pushed in 4, 10, 15 factories because the machines are the same and the code is the same and you can push. And so, yes, you can pay that guy handsomely because he's literally controlling one of the machines.
Right.
If you go to 99% of factories in the world, there is like the local guy and he codes one machine.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
can you pay that guy well? Answer, no.
Right. You just can't. I I love that mindset because I think that when you do have people and the systems in place to be able to make that change, it you become a place where people want to come work, not just a job that they have to report to, uh, because of the society we live in.
And
I
also, you
love
have
it.
fun because, like, is it cool being the guy who codes locally one machine for the next 20 years? Or is it blur being the guy who codes 100 machines for different time zones, remotely in the cloud, leveraging AI?
Right.
Like, which of the two is cooler?
Right. I To me, it would be the one operating multiple machines over 4 different time zones. To me, that would be awesome.
Of course.
Yeah. Um, Renan, what haven't I asked you that you want to share?
Um, I would say if we are looking to hire people,
Okay, let's talk about that. Are you hiring?
we have 60 open positions, James.
60? 60.
60, yeah.
Wow.
We have 60 open positions in all the startups and companies that we created. I would say at least a third of them are in the US, in the Boston bureau, because we are in that bureau. So we are looking for tech people, builders, nerds who want to do something else than optimize the ads for pet food that you are having on your iPhone and
Yeah.
actually do something that matters. And for incredible salespeople, marketing people, like we have 60 positions open. We cannot get people in the door quickly enough. And the other type is, so we're opening the Boston bureau, and so far we visited 860 factories in 4 years and a half. My personal goal is in the next year to visit 200 factories. And so we basically can go to factories and for one day we look at everything and we say, hey, if you want to make money using technology, you can do that, you can do that, you can do that, you can do that. That's zero cost. Like it's free because that's the way that we decide what to work on as a company. So if anyone listening to your podcast is a factory director saying, hey, that seems fun, like he or she can get at zero cost like a bunch of nerds coming to his factory and looking at everything and seeing what are the opportunities.
I want to come with you to 200 factories
You're
this year.
invited.
Yeah, all right, let's go. That
You're
sounds like a
invited.
blast.
Yeah.
All right,
Oh, I
let's
have the
do it.
best job in the world.
You do. I love it. I'm not often jealous of people's jobs. I'm jealous of your job. That sounds phenomenal. Renan, this has been a really great conversation. I really appreciate you being on today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. That was a blast. And
Yeah,
you're doing important work. I listened to several of your podcasts. It's really great. So thank you for having me.
thank you. Appreciate that. A massive thanks to Renan for joining me again. One of my favorite moment one of my favorite moments from this episode is when we talked about the people who run the factories of this industry, they don't hate change. They just want to author the change that they have to go through. This has been the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. If you've got something out of this episode, please share it with someone who gives a damn about the future of this industry. Thanks.